Imagine you've just moved into a new apartment and you're really proud, you want to show them off. Like, how do you make people feel at home?
I fundamentally reject the idea that you just bring good people in to just do good things.
People's expectations are going up. People want to have that level of service. They want the whole package.
My name is Jack Thomas, one of the co-founders of The Fit Guide, which is the global standard of fitness excellence. Welcome to 5-Star Fitness Podcast, which is all about bringing the very best from hospitality into the fitness industry so we can build better, more profitable businesses, and we can also impact more people. I'm joined today by Matt Lavender, co-founder of The Fit Guide. Welcome, Matt. And today we are talking about, well, it's actually the same title as our talk at HFA show in 2025, which is the fitness industry's hospitality crisis. Now, we've talked in the previous few episodes about Michelin Guide, Forbes Travel Guide, some of the things that they look for. And what we've really seen in our first year of evaluations is there's a lot of areas that we need to improve on in the fitness industry, certainly around hospitality and improving the member journey. So I want to start off with, Matt, with what is hospitality? What's the meaning of that?
It's a sort of question. If you ask 10 people, I think you get 10 different answers. But I think, for me and for a lot of my colleagues, I think what we think of hospitality is a way of making people feel genuinely welcome, making them feel at home. I think the word itself comes originally from hospital, so that doesn't exactly say too much. But I think, making people feel genuinely welcome, comfortable, cared for, creating a sense of belonging, making people feel relaxed in their environment. When I do my training, what I often say to people is, think about how you would welcome a friend to your home, for the first time. Imagine you've just moved into a new apartment and you're really proud, you want to show them off. Like, how do you make people feel at home? Well, you welcome them as they come, you maybe give them a big hug. I'm not sure staff should be giving all the staff hugs, but you know what I mean? And then you bring them in, you show them around, you just make them feel relaxed in their environment, creating that sense of belonging, that human connection, that personal interaction. I could go on forever, Jack, but I don't know. What's it mean to you? I'll put it back to you.
I really like that analogy of when someone comes to your home. I just think that's the best way to look at it. And of course, Jennifer Manavi joined us on that talk at a Health and Fitness Association conference in Las Vegas. And she talked a lot about this idea of how you welcome someone into your home. And I think just imagine what you do. Hopefully when someone comes to your home, you take their coat, you show them where the bathroom is, you perhaps get them a drink of water, you make sure they feel comfortable. It's really important to you that they have a great, maybe not experience is the word, but they have a great time in your home. And we need to sort of just carry that feeling over into our businesses. Again, it might not be applicable for every single business, but for high-end premium fitness, for the boutique fitness industry, I just think that's a really great starting point. And if you're a good host at home, just try and carry those values into your business and try and infuse those into your team, into your staff. We talked on a recent episode about restaurants and hotels. What industries do a good job, would you say, of hospitality, perhaps outside of those two?
Outside of those two, well, we've spoken a little bit about spas, obviously, as well. I think spas is an interesting one because you really do want to be walking into a different world, don't you, when you go into a spa. So, there are a few big players and there are some smaller ones that do that really, really well and create that sense of welcoming and warmth as you go in. There's some interesting industries that are starting to really make big waves as well. If you look at, for example, hospitals, private hospitals. So actually, that does kind of feed back. Here in Bangkok, there's some incredible hospitals, right? Where, they're not cheap, but you come and you get an experience. You get a 5-star hotel room or something similar and with all of the amenities and everything that you would like. And so I know there's a lot of hospitals, the big ones, the expensive ones that have been investing heavily on hospitality. Private members clubs often do it well. Again, I think, all of these industries, there are some that are doing it really well and there's some that aren't within that same industry. If you look at cruise liners as well, obviously, you've got the huge ones. They invest often a lot of money in training and really creating amazing hospitality. But then you've got some smaller players as well, like the smaller boats as well that can really do well and may be able to provide a little bit more attentive service. So there's lots of industries which are in the hospitality field, and there's lots of players within that are doing it well. room for improvement everywhere, Jack, I would say. How about fitness?
Yeah, certainly room for improvement in fitness. But I think it's worth saying, a lot of brands are doing a lot of good things. I don't want to be too negative, but we have just seen a lot of things that we're really not doing often enough. And that's really what we hope to change, really, with the Fit Guide and sort of having these conversations and getting this data out. I want to zoom into an industry a little bit. So we had an interesting conversation yesterday at like a cheaper restaurant, let's call it, or like eating establishment. And, the service wasn't great. It wasn't particularly expensive, but if we look at fine dining, of course, they have 5-star hospitality, 3-star Michelin restaurants, but do you think every eatery and restaurant should focus on hospitality, even if it's at a low budget or low price point?
I think so. I think, you have to recognize operational challenges within that, but you can recognize them without using them as an excuse. I don't think you should really be saying in any industry, we don't provide a high level of service because we're just not that kind of restaurant, or we're not that kind of hotel, or not that kind of gym, for example, because there's certain things that really cost very little to do. Common courtesy, greeting people as they enter, just making sure that everybody is taken care of, attentive service. I mean, really, these things, it shouldn't be too much to ask from your staff. I think that perhaps a lot of places would say it's hard for us to provide that level of service because of the staff that we're bringing in. Maybe they don't have that experience and that mindset. But I think that's where training comes in. I think if you set those expectations when you hire people, that they're expected to provide a certain level of service and get the buy-in from them, then I think really great service can be offered at any level. Now, it's different on the facility, obviously. Certain things that you can't invest in, but it doesn't really cost that much other than a mindset change sometimes and also some investment in training. I
think it's training and also culture. I think, it's you need to see management doing it. You need to see the gym owner doing it, establishment owner, gym owner, restaurant owner also doing it as well. Certainly training plays a big part in kind of driving that culture, I think. But it was interesting because I would say at this particular establishment we went to yesterday, often the service is very good. But having gone through this process with the Fit Guide and learning so much about hospitality, I can't help now but break down member journeys, experiences at different businesses. And it was just very, very small things that weren't done. And I always say, that wouldn't score in the Forms Travel Guide then or in a hotel evaluation. It was little things like when she gave me the change, she didn't make eye contact, she just handed it to me, didn't say anything at all. When they brought our dish over, they just put it on the table and walked off. And you said something which I thought was really interesting. Even though they just said enjoy. So just one word, right? A bit of eye contact and just enjoy. And the next lady that came over, she brought a coffee. And I can't remember, she didn't say enjoy, but she smiled, she made eye contact and she said something. And even that was enough to just give you kind of a little warm feeling inside instead of just dumping the food down and sort of walking off. And it wasn't super budget. This wasn't like street food, right? This was still like a medium range restaurant. So it's interesting for me, just the smallest little things, which I really think, unless perhaps you're Ryanair, I really think, every business should be doing.
Yeah, I think that's where, you can look at individual interactions or individual touch points and really break service down into its elements. I think what tends to happen is people think that great service is something that can't really be quantified. It just is, it just exists. But actually, I'm quite scientific about this, and I think that comes from having to, assess 600 standards. When I do my training with hotels, I sort of really break it down. I say, look, any interaction with a guest is an interaction, and there are certain things that you can do, and obviously eye contact and smiling, things like that. But I always encourage everybody, always make sure you close every interaction, whether that's a long interaction like a check-in, whether that be a hotel or at a gym, or even just when someone puts something on the table, or maybe in the context of a fitness class when somebody comes over to adjust your position, for example. Make sure that before you leave, before you end that interaction, you just say something. So closing interactions, it's subtle, and it's sort of one of those things that the average person, it's not necessarily that they consciously know. Oh, look, they close that interaction, but over a longer experience, it's all these little things that add up that just create an impression of great service.
Yeah, I really like that idea, and that was the term you used. Closing the interaction. Right. I really like that. And again, it could be a single word, enjoy, or in a fitness context, you got this, or I'll come and check on you in a moment, or keep going, something like that, right, as you walk away. And I think it's as you said, it's often subconscious. You're not really going to notice that these things are happening, but it does have a huge impact. And especially having worked so closely with you, I fundamentally reject the idea that you just bring good people in to just do good things. You need good people, of course, and that will help to bring life into the experience, but you must have this training, these processes, these things that are just fundamentally done every time. And if you couple that with just good people, not even necessarily fantastic people or great people, but good people that know how to follow that, you're going to actually get great 5-star experiences. Let's talk a little bit about brands, specific brands. We're not going to mention the bad ones. Okay. We'll mention the good ones, the ones that are just doing a fantastic job in your mind.
Just on the hotel side, across any industry. Well, I mean, look, I think at the 5-star luxury level in hotels, there's a few big names that do it well. You know, people have their preferences because they're not necessarily everything to everyone. You know, but I think if I had to name a few, I would say, you know, Four Seasons, Mandarin Oriental, St. Regis, certainly. I mean, there's many of us, you know, on the smaller side. Capella here is doing an incredible job. I think then, you know, you have some which are maybe more spa or leisure focused. If you look at Six Senses, I think they're an incredible brand. I think then if you sort of, for me, I love independent hotels. I love smaller brands as well. And I think that, you know, if you look at, say, some of the collections of hotels, which, you know, they're all independent, but, you know, you have to have certain criteria, for example, to be in small luxury hotels of the world. I think, you know, a lot of them do it really well as well on the independent side. You know, I think for me, those are the brands that stand out.
Yeah. And of course, Iniala, you stayed there last week.
I mean, Iniala is, you know, I'm a little bit biased because, you know, I work regularly with them, but it is a brand I love. You know, it was one of the first properties here in Thailand that I had the pleasure of opening. So being part of that opening team, I do a lot of work with them for their hotel, both here in Thailand and also in Malta. And I love the brand. It's incredible. They're beautiful in terms of the design and everything, but they've really bought into the whole culture of hospitality that you know, I've been working with them. And, you know, Iniala in Malta is the only 5-star Forbes Travel Guide hotel there. So, you know,
after working with you, of course.
Yes, well, you know, I won't take all the credit now. They're incredible team, but, you know, they're consistently head and shoulders above anyone else on the island.
Yeah, I think we can seek inspiration from many other industries. Again, since we've started working on this project, whenever I stay at a nice hotel, I always really try and take note of every single little thing that they do. Or if I'm lucky enough to go to a nice restaurant, then I really try and take note of how they build the experience. I went to a Michelin star restaurant. I think it was my first visit ever to a Michelin star restaurant for a friend's birthday, and they really did a fantastic job. It was a restaurant here in Bangkok, and it was fascinating to see how they do that, from how they show you the table to how they present the dishes. Really, every single aspect of the member journey was bang on, and it really gave me some little ideas in terms of what we can do at base. Nothing direct, like we need to do that exact thing, but just the way they made me feel. I thought, how can we bring that into base? How can we bring that into fitness? Which brands, maybe I'm slightly better placed to answer this, but I'll start with you. Which brands in fitness are doing a great job, specifically with hospitality?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because especially for me as a sort of outsider and initially, but has now actually had the opportunity to experience many of these brands. If I had to name a few, I would say, I mean, Orange Theory do it really well. And I think what really stands out for me, and I could see it a mile off, you know, as soon as I walked into that first Orange Theory, I was like, they've been trained. Like, they have really good standards and they're really well trained to deliver those standards, and it's just consistent, you know. And then once you then go to a second one or a third one, you're like, you know, there's very little difference from one to another in terms of that level. They're consistently offering a very high level of service, and, you know, I think that it's a great example of where if you've got the right mentality, the right culture, the right standards in place, and the right training, actually, you know, it really can be delivered at that level in fitness. Do you agree? You've done plenty of Orange Theories. Is it one that stands out for you as well?
Specifically in the US.
In the US,
I think we saw a bit of a mixed bag in other locations and other parts of the world, but in the US they seem to have really nailed it. The ones we went into in New York really scored fantastically well across the board. And like you said, it's obviously no mistake. And one of the most interesting things about this process has been when you talk to the gym owner, when you talk to the person that built the brand, it's very rarely sort of fluke or a mistake that these things happened. It's usually extremely purposeful. Another brand that stands out is Physique 57, of course, and We become friends with Jennifer, who we spoke with at HFA, through the process of the Fit Guide, and really connecting with her on this. And speaking to her the first time that we visited, her club scored 5 stars, and just hearing how much purpose they put into this. Every single part of the member journey is crafted, is mapped out. They train on it relentlessly. They don't do anything like mystery shopping, but they do a lot of observations, and they found our process very useful. And the second year, they still scored 5 stars, but there was quite a lot of areas. They only just got 5 stars, and there was quite a lot of areas that we highlighted where they can improve. And Jennifer was happy to talk about this. She did it at HFA. There were certain parts of the pre- and post-class check-in, and it was nice to know that they're doing things well. But again, our process really helped highlight things that they can improve. And just like we had at base, she also saw that in physique. But again, it was that purposefulness in crafting the journey behind the scenes that really stood out.
I think that's a great example of where it really comes from the top, that mentality, that culture. I mean, as you say, we've become really good friends with Jennifer, and she's spoken on stage with us, and she really understands hospitality. She really understands the importance of it. Of any club owner or founder that we've spoken to about what we do, she's been such a cheerleader, and she's really, really recognized that, what we're trying to do is something that the industry needs. And I think, you need that mindset, and you need it to come from the top. I think where it maybe gets more difficult is when you start opening hundreds of franchises to keep that consistency throughout the brand, right?
Yeah, that must be difficult. Still manage to do it in the US.
They do.
But yeah, that's certainly a challenge.
Are there any other really big brands that you can think of in terms of numbers of locations that have done it really well? I know I think what we've found just looking at the data is that, I mean, obviously, I think are a good example because most of them did it well, especially in the US, not everywhere. But then others, it's been a little bit inconsistent. You'd have one here that does really well and here not so well. So I'm struggling to think of one that's really great across the board, especially ones that have more than 2 or 3. I think you see a few that are quite good if they've not got too many.
It's certainly a challenge. I think Solid Core have overall done a good job, and we've had good conversations with the management team there. And again, that's no mistake. They've got staff that are dedicated to the member journey, the member experience, regionally and nationally. So even though they are a very low staff model, they've done a very good job. I think considering it's so huge, I think F45 also do a good job by and large. I don't know what they have behind the scenes in terms of training, but I think they're such a massive scale. I think 1,500 locations. I think they've done an excellent job as well. We've called this episode The Crisis in Hospitality. Finally, why is it important to embrace hospitality? What are the benefits?
Well, I think, if you look at the long term, there are so many players out there, aren't there, in the market at the moment, and it's been shaken up all the time. I don't have my finger to the pulse as much as you, but just from our conversations, I can see how many are opening, closing, and so I suppose really, it could be that differentiator that makes a brand really succeed. I think that people's expectations over time are going up, right? More and more people are having access to go and enjoy fine dining restaurants or to have maybe even if it's just one night at a 5-star hotel. And so people's expectations are going up. People want to have that level of service. They want the whole package. And so for me, I think it's so important to embrace hospitality because it might just be the differentiator that helps a brand succeed when others may, unfortunately, not survive the shake-up.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this is maybe something we can dig into in a later episode, but we absolutely had a hospitality crisis at my gym.
Right.
6, 7, 8 years ago. And this is before we, of course, started the Fit Guide. And it took us years, really, to build out processes and training and change the culture. Since we've launched the Fit Guide, we've had a renewed focus on all of this. And it's really helped in terms of our training, what we do internally. And we've seen the knock-on benefits to that in terms of increased revenue, longer client lifetime, more retention for staff, for clients, and really seen the positive benefits of that. So it's been great for me to learn from you, just from a business perspective. And of course, that's some of the things that we want to share with the fitness industry as well. Okay, if you think that fitness industry needs more hospitality, if you think it can benefit from what the other top industries in the world do, such as hotels and restaurants and spas, do subscribe to the podcast. Give this video a like. Do subscribe to our newsletter as well. We put out a weekly resource to help you learn more about what the best brands in fitness are doing and how hospitality can help the fitness industry. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.